Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It's Geoff Mosher. It's Adam Caplan. And it is a big time period for Eagles football. We have Doug Peterson back from quarantine. We got phase 2 of training camp now upon us. And phase 3 is pretty much around the corner. It's not going to be too far away. So, Adam, it's starting to feel a little bit more like real training camp is here. Just a little bit.
A little bit, right. Good Thursday, by the way, everyone, as on your way to work, wherever you live, especially in the East Coast if you're hearing us at 6 a.m. Eastern. But Jeff's right. Look, it started on Wednesday, which is the next phase. They're in phase 2. As a coach told me on his way into work when he woke me up at 5:45 a.m. on Wednesday morning, he goes, brother, you could call this phase 2 because that's what it is. Phase 1 was nothing. He said all this was conditioning work for veterans. They do anything on the field. Now we'll do light work on the field until Monday, Geoff. And we'll get into that in our notebook because this whole show, the entire show is a notebook. We'll get into what that means and what happened this week and so forth. But you're right. Thank goodness, Geoff. We've got football, and also on Thursday we've got another little note to tell you. We got something really dropping today later. It's going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, make sure you are watching or subscribed to our Inside the Birds YouTube channel because we have the pleasure of having a guest, former Eagle in the scouting department, and now the current general manager of the Kansas City Chiefs, Super Bowl champion, Brett Veach. And it was a great interview. Adam, we talked about, I thought he had really interesting stuff on what he saw in Patrick Mahomes in college at Texas Tech that maybe others didn't. We had a lot of great info on their running back that they picked this year in the first round out of LSU, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Just in general, we talked to Brett about his scouting philosophy. They've done a great job building that organization ever since Andy got there and John Dorsey, giving way to Brett. And also some talk about his time with the Eagles. So I thought it was really fascinating interview, and it's very rare that you get to interview a Super Bowl champion head coach exclusively the way we did, not head coach, general manager, the way we did. So that was, I encourage everybody to check that out when it drops on Inside the Birds TV.
Right. It was a good 45 minutes. We're just touching the surface of what we talked about. But for those people who play fantasy football, you'll love the information Clyde Edwards-Helaire and also DeAndre Washington in there.
Yep.
We talked about scouting for the fall and for next year because of all these teams that are not going to play college football. We might not have any teams playing. We'll see. But the fact of the matter is how scouting may have to change. He has some great stuff, which is a little bit contrary to some of the other people. But what Veach tells us makes way more sense than some of the speculation from some other people. So it was wonderful. He was great. We really appreciate his time, and certainly kicks off the week really well because we learn a lot about scouting in this interview.
Yeah, and also we touched on something we'll touch on in this podcast, just what teams are doing right now from top to bottom. We're talking about phase 2, but college football is uncertain right now. Every team has a college personnel staff that has to do some extra legwork at this point. And, of course, as you mentioned before, this whole acclimation period is different for the coaches, for the personnel people, and, of course, for the players. And I like that you brought that up because we're going to talk about what these phases mean and what they entail as we go on here in this podcast. And as you mentioned, Adam, it's going to be a notebook style podcast because you and I are going to go through what we've been hearing from our sources about what went happen in phase 1. But I think it's really important that you and I emphasize to our listeners right now that phase 1 was strength and conditioning. It was about mental acclimation to the playbook. And as you mentioned, they're kind of a watered down version of OTA. So I think we need to urge everyone to have the right perspective about what you and I are going to talk about. There's a long way between today and the start of the season, and a lot of things can happen in between. So I thought it was important that you and I emphasize that because people tend to run with things and get crazy about it. We're just giving you what we've heard up until now about a very brief acclimation period. Is that fair?
It's funny. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because that's actually the people that I spoke with around the league when I'm talking to various teams about how everything looks, coaches and execs. All of them say kind of the same thing. Don't read into this. You don't need to go crazy with it because it doesn't mean a lot. The phase 1 means next to nothing. It's just the rookies. All you can do if you're a personnel guy is watch the practice tape, okay? And then obviously there's some guys who are on the field, but some people are not at home. They're somewhere else. and they're watching the practice tape, and they're just getting an idea. It just depends on what your role is for a particular team. But the coaches will tell you, as they've told me, they're not learning a lot in phase one. The big thing, and we're going to get into this is important, what kind of shape the guy showed up in. Because as we learned, Geoff, in the lockout coming out in 2011, this was a big issue for for NFL teams because they did not have access to the players. They couldn't even talk to them. They were not allowed to because the players were locked out.
Right.
Here, you could talk to the players, and the players who had workout bonuses in their contract, if they wanted to get the bonus, they had to film it, and the trainers had to see it. But the fact of the matter is they didn't do very much. But the big thing, and we're going to get into that in a couple minutes, is what kind of condition. But, Geoff, the big thing that happened was Doug Peterson came back, and some other players have come back, and there's some who've not.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that and how that folds into the conditioning versus lack of conditioning. First, Adam, I want to remind everyone that we've partnered with Philly's own Stateside Vodka, so make sure you go to statesidevodka.com to get 10% off the best vodka out there with the promo code BIRDS on pickup or delivery. That's right. You can pick it up or they can deliver it to you. You'll get 10% off using the promo code BIRDS at statesidevodka.com. All right, you mentioned it. The one person whose conditioning isn't such a big deal is Doug Peterson. You just want him healthy enough to be at NovaCare and coaching. Look, he had a Zoom session, and I thought he was very interesting in his Zoom because he said, and I'm going to directly quote him, that the Eagles are not in catch-up mode. I think we've all assumed that with every single team is in catch-up mode because there's been so much spring and missed OTAs and guys not on the field even now for phase one. But Doug made it. He said two things that are really interesting. He said the playbook, the offense and defense are installed, and right now they're working on situational football, which is something you normally work on deeper into camp. And he said all the learning that needed to be learned has been done in these classroom sessions.
Oh, Geoff, real quick.
It's hard to believe. I'm just saying I get what he's saying, but I mean, I feel like he's just kind of just doing the whole business as usual thing.
No, but the one thing he did say, and it is he didn't quite say it the way the coaches I've spoken to with other teams have said it, but this is for veteran coaches, this is the most access they've had to players in a classroom setting, though they weren't in the classroom. It was virtual, of course.
Right.
They've never had so much time learning off the field. It's actually a good thing. You couldn't have these players for
this long, but this is all they can do. And that's the great thing. They ought to know the playbook cold, but the problem is we try to sync up players on the field to the learning in the classroom. It's not always that easy. But I thought Doug was kind of fired up. He seemed to be a little bit on edge, maybe. I don't know. He just seemed to have a little bit of a different attitude. Probably he's cooped up in his home trying to quarantine.
I was just about to say that to me was right? Quarantine Doug getting his
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So Nate Gary is back.
Yep.
He's off the COVID list now, and we never really found out if he had COVID or was just around someone. Lane Johnson is back. He admitted to testing positive for COVID. Jordan Mailata not yet clear. Now you probably have more information. I'm told he's he's close though.
We put on our show 2 weeks ago that I had heard that, or week and a half, whenever the rookies reported that it shouldn't be very long, and I've heard he's close. And that's the one guy that needs reps, man. The way I look at it, we're gonna talk about offensive line later in the show, but he needs to be back and obviously needs to be healthy, and we hope he is. But he's a guy who needs reps. Any rep he can get are important ones.
Right. Now we talk about conditioning. I don't know when the ramp up is about to start. I don't know that Jordan Mailata goes right to wherever spot he would normally be, maybe second team offensive tackle, and starts doing as much, all the reps at that until he's physically ready once he does come back. We'll have to see and hear. So there have been people taking his place right now. Obviously, Matt Pryor's been in there. I've heard rookie Jack Driscoll has been taking most of his reps at right tackle in practice, though. So obviously without Lane and without Jordan there, you got to think that Driscoll is getting as much work as a rookie can get at this point.
That's good, yeah, because they see him as a guard, right tackle, and I'm told potential center down the road. Now, I'm not saying starting. For those who like to quote Geoff and I, let me just make this clear. I'm not saying he's going to be Kelsey's replacement, because I know there are a lot of people speculating on who that might be. Are they going to get the guy in the draft? I'm not. All I'm telling you is that the Eagles know, as other teams know, that at Auburn he took practice reps at center I couldn't tell you what year. I just know from a scouting source with another team who told me that they noted it. And every team knows this because it's their job to go to these schools and get this information. So it's not a secret. So
Right.
Jordan Mailata is not back yet. All right, let's get to the out of the blue retirement, Geoff. Jatavis Brown. Jatavis Brown was a guy that he was competing for an outside starting job. When I say outside starting, folks, the Eagles are a huge nickel team. They're somewhere between 67, 70% nickel every game. So when we say starting, it just means that he'd be he was competing to be a starting outside, one of the two nickel linebackers. Okay, Gary Brown and Riley and Duke Riley will get to him. But is it a big loss? No, but because the guy is the only bona fide starting player at linebacker that they have.
Yes.
You know, he projected to probably start. Now the Eagles may not agree, but my sense is that had he stayed and had he not lost his love for the game, that's why he retired, he could have started. But I don't know him, so I don't know why. As someone told me, an ex-player told me, we were just catching up recently. You don't go to camp. You don't just decide, oh, I don't feel like playing it when you're going through camp. It's been on your mind for weeks. Correct. Something might have triggered it to go through with it, but it's not like he just decided that day to do it. There's no way in hell that happened. So it's been on his mind for a while. That I can tell.
Right. It must have been. And obviously I was told that he really, poured it out and said, look, it has nothing to do with anything other than the fact that I'm just ready to be done with the game. And it surprised the coaches. I don't think clearly.
Yeah, because how would they know?
How would they know?
Well, they wouldn't. The way it works is players do not. They might tell the wife or the girlfriend or the brother or the sister or the parents, but they're not going to tell they don't tell the coaches until it actually happens. It's not like it. Now I know of cases where over the years, like a player will call a position coach, "Hey, man, I'm just not sure if I want to play," and they'll talk him into playing, and everything works out. But more often than not, it doesn't. Because if you're thinking about retiring, you're retiring in your head. It's not good. So that happened. So again, we'll get into linebackers later, but that happened. That was a surprise. And then the one you've been reporting on for weeks happened. You'd said that but gosh, Geoff, I think your first report was like 6 weeks ago.
This
is 3 or 4 teams. Go ahead.
Is the bizarre saga of reporting on something that I've been through because. We have to circle back to maybe a couple months ago where I said, it's free agency they're deep into it, but there's open lines of communication between Curry and the Eagles. Both sides do have an affinity for each other, and it looks like it'll eventually happen. And then, as you know, Vinny suffered the loss of his brother or his half brother, and he decided to just take some time to think about it. He had other teams pursuing him at the time as well. And then a lot of time went by, and I think I kept saying, it's still there. The possibilities are going to happen. At one point, I was told that it was going to be pretty close, like it could happen with the Eagles at any moment. And then more time went by, and it didn't happen. And then all of a sudden, recently as last week, I'm going to say, I'm being told that Vinny might be signing with an AFC team. And that the Browns are making a really hot offer on him.
They did, yeah. They did. They obviously Andrew Berry liked him. The thing is about Curry, you don't hear a lot about third DNs. He had from an analytic point of view, he had a very good season.
Yes,
very good season.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I think it folds into the concept. Two things stick out to me, Adam. Number one, and we talked about this a couple of pods ago. I think both of us have had coaches tell us. Coaching sources tell us that the more versatile you are, especially this year, the better off you're going to be for a team, the more value you're going to have for a team because, teams are bracing for the fact that their rosters might get decimated. And, especially the day before a game, a couple of people might test positive, not knowing and you have to scramble. And so if you have players who can play multiple positions, like Vinny can play D end, but he can also move inside like he did last year and play D tackle, that's a benefit. But the second thing also is if you think about it, Adam, before Vinny re-signed, you had Brandon Graham and Derek Barnett as your starters, right? And we've gone through the long list of other guys that they have trying to make the team. But none of those guys are really meant to be starters, right? If one of those top two get hurt.
Sweat
we know about Josh Sweat in the knees. We don't know anything about Sharif Miller yet. I mean, he's got to prove that he's even going to be a situational pass rusher. We know Jannard Avery is not built to be a run down defensive end, and same thing with Osman. And so they've got a lot of names there. But if Barnett or Graham were to get hurt, and we've already seen that happen to Barnett twice, and we know Brandon's up there in age, they didn't really have a good feasible guy to start. Right.
Yeah,
and that's where
personnel
Reed
guys always say we need an answer. So this is my thinking. This is just my sense. If we didn't have the pandemic, Curry probably would not be back. And I don't think Peters would be back. That's just me. It's more of an educated guess based on some of the things I'd heard. But and then plus you obviously you throw in the Brandon Brooks situation. That made it a really smart move to bring Peters back. We're going to get into his situation, his conditioning, and all these players' conditioning in a couple minutes. But it made sense through the pandemic.
Josh Sweat simply cannot play 40, 50 snaps a game and less. It's just not going to happen, folks. I know Geoff has been on this for 6 months now to get younger. I don't disagree. I really do believe that they would have given Miller a shot. Let's say we had a normal offseason. Assess where Miller is, okay? If Miller is not where they need him, and Avery can only play a certain amount of snaps. He's very small. They have to assess Joe Osman, who's done a great job from rehab. He's not even on PUP. That's a great sign. Okay, so all these guys, they could throw them all in and see what happens. But you can't when you have no off season and no preseason, and you've got 3 weeks now, starting Monday, Geoff. And we're gonna get into the next segment about what practices look like and the timing. You don't have a lot of time here. This is what coaches tell me. We're in the National Football League. You don't have a lot of time to start tweaking and looking at younger players. You got to get ready for week 1. You didn't have an off season. And wait to hear what Brett Veach says about training camp in the preseason. Some great stuff.
Yeah, and listen, the reality is, as we sit here and record this, we're about a month away from the season opener. That's it. Just a month.
Yeah, I know. They don't have time. So I'm with you. On our message board on Facebook. The sentiment is with you, and they're backing you, Geoff. They want younger players. They're sick of the older players. This is a special situation, folks. I'm with you. The Eagles, trust me, wanted to get younger this offseason. They did in some ways, but got older because of injury situations and the pandemic, so we can move on.
Yeah, real quick, I want to finish one point on Jatavis Brown because you brought up the Inside the Birds Facebook page, and it reminded me that I was surprised to see some of the reaction of people who said it's not that big of a deal because he wasn't going to make the team anyway. And as you mentioned, I mean, look, who are their nickel linebackers right now? We know Nate Gary is going to be one, but there had to be – you can't just hand the other nickel linebacker spot to Duke Riley or who am I missing here? Certainly not Davion Taylor, the rookie.
No,
Jatavis was the elder statesman of this group.
Right.
he had 24 starts.
He actually has some good tape out there. He just had he had a bad injury history. Duke Riley was a starter very early in his career, the Falcons. Then they benched him and made him, and then he became a good special teams player. So, no, you're right. That's a very good point. They don't have any answers here. So, right now they've got 7 linebackers on the roster, and we'll get to linebackers quickly later. But Geoff, the big thing next is finally, as you mentioned at the top here, we're going to get real practices coming here. They practiced yesterday, which was Wednesday. On Monday, they're in pads. Doug Peterson talked about it in his press conference. And I know you mentioned it on Twitter, and you're right, is that, if his history is like Andy Reid's, he's going to hit. He's one of the few coaches that plans to hit. And some guy said to me on Twitter, this is the problem with Peterson. This is why guys get hurt in the regular season. I don't buy that. One doesn't have to do with the other. You're just making a subjective review. You have no idea why guys get hurt in the regular season. I don't think one has to do with the other, to be honest with you.
Yeah, now we used to joke because, about 7 or 8 days into an Andy Reid training camp the great trainer who's Rick Burkholder, all of a sudden he had a lot of company. He'd have 7 or 8 guys, and we call them the 30 club, right? It would all be guys over 30 because this felt tight and that felt tight.
But it wasn't like they were.
And then it became maintenance day and veteran day. It wasn't like they were all, torn ACLs or anything like that. But no, right now though, Adam, and let's outline this for people because right now you're in phase 2, the gradual ramp up period, which means you've got 3.5 hours of the ability to be on the field per day. The first practice starts 90 minutes? And then you get kind of a 15-minute increase per day up to 120. right? I think the big things to notice, the big things to notice are Thursday and Saturday are your non-padded practice days, and Friday is a day off.
Right. So no, Saturday's a day off.
I'm sorry. You're right. Friday. What is it? Friday and Sunday with the day off.
Friday, Sunday. Right. So the way it goes is, folks, as you listen to this Thursday, they're in phase 2 activities. Now they're allowed to wear helmets. It's funny, but the reason is because they do not want to go through what happened in 2011. The NFLPA said that the hamstring, groin, and soft tissue injuries were up 25%, and Achilles injuries were up highly. Mm-hmm. And their belief is because they didn't have a good enough ramp-up period. So you're basically you had the acclimation period, which was last week. Now you have the gradual ramp-up period. And then on the weekend, Geoff said, Friday and Sunday, non-padded, no contact, but you could do 7-on-7, you could do 11-on-11. This is what this coach told me on Wednesday, that he goes, this is phase 2. When you go to practice and you could see, the media could see the guys in shorts and helmets and jerseys. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is what you see when it's sort of athletic training, athletic periods, but you can't hit, no contact. Although, by the way, you'll see contact. You're not supposed to, but inevitably you're going to see that.
Inevitably it happens. And so now phase 3 will begin Monday, right? August 17th, I believe, is Monday.
Yep.
And that is where you can have
Thank
hour
God.
Practice or increase. And you've got, from that point on until September 6th, the first week of regular season practice, you've got 14 padded practices. And I thought Doug made a really good point today, Adam, and I think it's really interesting. If you think about training camp in August, there's by the time you get to the second week, you've got your preseason games about to start, one a week, right? Yep. And usually the Eagles will play on Thursday a lot. So when you have your preseason game, you have a day off before, you have the game, and then you have the day off after. Correct. So for 4 straight weeks, you have a 3-day stretch where there's not a whole lot of evaluation because you've got 2 off days, and then sometimes players only play a series or 2 or 3, right? So now that you take those away, those are days that you can practice at the Novocaine. Those are going to turn into practice days.
Correct.
And so although they don't have preseason games to be evaluated on, they have a lot more practice days to be evaluated on. And as you just mentioned, Doug turns it up in practice. He will push it to as far as he's allowed to push it. And so there will be an evaluation period. And in some sense, there'll be a little bit more time to see certain players.
Correct. Yeah. No, I had mentioned that like a month ago on this show, that though you take 4 games away, that's 12 extra days. You should be able to, at the very least, if those 12 open days, you should get 8 of those days back. And then that's the benefit of it. So they're going to get more practice time, but you miss those 24 plus practices in the off season. And the big thing, and this is coming from my personal guy that I absolutely trust with another team. He goes, I'm telling you, he goes, this is going to be the worst year we've ever had for undrafted free agents. He's like, they're just not going to get on the field. Mm-hmm. He's like, the coaches, he goes, my job in our front office is to make sure the coaches understand. We know you're coaching for week 1, but do the best job you can of giving us a true evaluation. Yeah, we'll watch the practice tape with you. We get the same tape, but you're coaching these guys. Still coach them up. Try to find something to these guys. But the reality is, and Bill Polian told us on our show last week, he's not expecting rookies to make any impact until late in the season if they do at all. That's a little tough to hear, but look, the guy's in the Hall of Fame. He would know better than anyone.
Yeah, no, and it depends on just what kind of rookie you are, obviously, right, and how much time that you're going to be able to get. I want to get into some of the notebooks or the notes that we have on some individual players because this is important. So we're going to do that next. First, I want to say that the hits literally keep on coming from one MMA event to the next. They grow in excitement and anticipation, and UFC 252 is no different with 2 of the sport's most respected fighters stepping into the octagon this weekend. There's no better place to get in on all the action than with DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. For this weekend's fight, DraftKings is offering all new users the opportunity to bet $1 to win $252. That is an unbelievable odd right there, my friend. You got to capitalize on that. So to celebrate this weekend's huge event, DraftKings Sportsbook is offering new users the opportunity to bet $1 and win $252 when placing a bet on the big fight. So head to the app right now and check out all they have to offer, including fighter props, round-by-round betting, and so much more.
I got to do this. I got to do this.
I mean, how do you not? It's $1.
Right. First, is there an expert? My nephew used to run Bellator. My nephew Sam Caplan. I don't follow. I should. But, this is actually a great idea, man. It's $1. I mean, come on.
There you go. Plus, right, Adam, with basketball's playoffs right around the corner, DraftKings Sportsbook is offering $10 in free bets to use on in-game action for every day of the first round of the playoffs. Remember, DraftKings is a safe, secure, and reliable betting app. You can deposit and withdraw your funds at your convenience. So download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code ITB when you sign up. For a limited time, all new users can bet $1 to win $252 on this weekend's main event. That's right. DraftKings Sportsbook is going all out for new users by offering them the chance to win $252 when placing a bet of $1 on this weekend's big fight by using code ITB only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older. Pennsylvania only in partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. Other terms and conditions, restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Okay, with that out of the way, let's talk about some of the players and how they showed up and what we've heard about their conditioning and training and so forth. Why don't we start with one of the bigger names, Adam? Jalen Reagor, first-round pick, rookie, a lot on his plate so far. I think you and I have both heard the same thing. I'll let you go ahead with it.
Yeah, so, there's mostly good stuff here. It's just when you have a rookie who's not been with a football team, you're not going to be training with their staff. So his weight was great, somewhere between 195 and 198. The thing about these weights, Geoff, is every NFL team, they take the weights of the players every day. Mm-hmm. So when we say, hey, this guy made a weight this weight, he's probably going to lose that weight. So he might be, like, for instance, I think Reagor is either between 195 and 198. Mm-hmm. He might be 190 by then at camp because of the water. You lose so much water weight. Right. But the conditioning and cardio could be better. So that's one. Yeah, that it's not a big deal, but I think what happens is because remember, he hasn't practiced. His team was not very good. I don't think they were in a bowl game. He probably had not been with a football team since probably in 7 or 8 months. Mm-hmm. So naturally, he's not. The training standards are not going to be the same as they would be with when you get to be with an NFL team. His weight was good. Now, one thing I do want to mention on Miles Sanders, I actually put this out June of last year, Geoff. Sanders had hamstring strains on not one, but both hamstrings. And his weight might have been 2 or 3 pounds higher than they probably wanted it. Now, did he strain the hamstrings because his conditioning wasn't great? I can't say that. That'd be speculating.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, this is what happens when you have younger players that have not been with your football team. Once they get in, they're good. And Reagor's an incredibly hard worker. He's got a great attitude. I don't see cardio being a big deal. His weight is good, which is really important. Really important.
Yeah, I feel like with running backs and receivers, Adam, it's not strange to see that, and then they get caught up pretty quickly because those guys are used to running. Of course, sometimes we've seen offensive linemen show up out of shape, and that's carried with them. There are a couple of guys that I can go back, not just on the Eagles, other teams that just don't show up in great shape, and they need a week or two or sometimes a little longer to get there. But with receivers and running backs, I feel like it's a little bit of a different story.
Yeah. And then Deshaun, I mentioned it months ago that, he has this personal trainer who trains a lot of track guys. And Deshaun obviously has got track speed. Deshaun is thicker as his thighs. If you've seen, and his calves. If you saw Deshaun for most of his career, very bony, may or may not have been the reason why he got hurt a lot because he's just not physically strong. Though he could fly and he's got great hands. He's very talented. He's not just a speed guy. He's actually very talented. But he's somewhere around 177, 178, which for him is good. That's actually a good thing that he's put on, because when he was a rookie, he was 167, and that is, remember, he was bony, right? He was bony, right? Exactly. So Yeah. So John Hightower, mid 180s, 185, 86. Great. You want him over time, over maybe the second year. If you could get up to 190, is he 6'1.5"? He's built like Darius Slayton of the Giants, and you want him to put his weight on. Do you have any notes on him as well, Geoff?
On Hightower?
Yeah.
Yeah, just on usage. We're going to get into the.
Oh, we'll get to that. Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. One note on Jason Peters. Mm-hmm. His weight's up there. He's somewhere or in the mid 340s.
Oh boy.
So now again,
mm-hmm.
his playing weight has always been somewhere in the 330s. He I don't know this exact weight. I just know from what I understand he's in the 340s. He may be 332 at the end of training camp because of all the weight you lose. So it's really not a big deal.
Right.
Like I cannot tell you how many times I would see him at training camp and he looks really heavy.
Right.
I remember one time I thought he looks 360 sometimes because his jersey's hanging out,
Right. I will say though, it was our concern last year watching him play that because he's a little bit older, he seemed to be playing a little heavier last year, and it showed at times.
Sure, it's fair.
Now he might be able to get away with that at guard when you're moving bigger guys laterally a lot more in your zone blocking than when you're facing these really fast pass rushers.
What did Todd Herman tell us, Geoff?
He said that the weight might actually be a benefit. He might have
the
good body size.
There you go. Playing into what you just said. So Dillard. Let's get into Dillard.
Okay.
My understanding is his weight's really good. He's kept it up. Last year, 310, 312-ish, 325, early part of camp, somewhere in that area.
Right.
So, Geoff, what else do we know about him?
Yeah, I was told he had a little minor tweak of the knee. So it wouldn't be surprising if he's just, sitting out for a few days before that thing is fully right. I think, again, we talk about being injured in this year's training camp. Coaches cannot have guys as important as Andre Dillard making that jump, missing a week or two because an injury is just not getting right. So they're going to be as precautious as possible. So we'll see what happens. But I just heard that he just tweaked the knee a little bit.
Okay, hopefully, if it's an MCL sprain, hopefully it's a grade 1 because that's a day-to-day thing. Sharif Miller came in bulkier. This was expected. He needed to get stronger physically, Geoff, and we're going to get into defensive end in a couple minutes. But that's a good sign. And then Anthony Rush. This is interesting. So I'd said, Jesus Christ, when did they get him? Last fall. Whenever they signed him from the Raiders practice squad.
Well, they had him at training camp, right? And then they cut him, and then he went to the Raiders.
Him 2 days in. Yeah. Right. So he was 360. He was 362 when they got him from the Raiders. He is somewhere between 345 and 348. That's good.
Did he eat Jason Peters? 362.
No, but right. Then that's when he reported from the Raiders.
Oh, I know. It's just amazing.
A Raiders source told me that had they kept him because they wanted him big because he's a D tackle. And he can play nose because he's so long. They wanted him 345-ish. Well, guess what? That's in the area now. He reported, and that's he had told people that he wanted to be like 335. That's probably a little bit forward thinking because Geoff, he's 6'5". And his long arms are unbelievably long. He's built like the guy with the Bears. His name escapes me.
Akeem Hicks.
Yeah, Akeem Hicks. Correct. Thank you. So
I still find
it. We'll see. Go ahead.
The Eagles have a defensive tackle who's 340 plus pounds because if anything, the Eagles tend to be the lighter, faster, one gap get to the quarterback. But this guy is huge.
Who was the guy that got from the Redskins back in like 2012? Anthony Dixon.
Antonio Dixon.
Antonio Dixon.
Yeah.
That kid was built like this guy, but this Rush is taller. His arms are longer. He's legit 6'5", and he's massive. But he's got a lot of upside. But because he went to UAB, he needs to learn technique and at this level. And he's a raw player. He's competing against Raekwon Williams. That will really heat up next week for the 50 D tackle job. Those are the two guys that are competing for it.
No doubt about it. All right, that's good information. That's good. And again, we urge everybody. This is just conditioning right now.
Yeah.
Things can change, but it was important to get height, weight. At least weight and conditioning status for who we could. I want to get into the wide receiver and the linebacker position, Adam, because we have some information there that I think is really interesting. But first, I want to remind everybody, check out PHL Sports Nation. PHLSportsNation.com. They are covering all 4 Philly sports teams like nobody else. All right. They are for the fans, by the fans. That's their motto. They're always enhancing the fan experience with their coverage of these great teams. And look, look how good the Flyers are doing right now. So you want to be checking out their coverage and their content.
And by the way, the Phillies should take up 5 pages there.
Just on their bullpen alone, right?
Oh my God, they who is more of a train wreck, the Sixers or the Flyers? Sixers or Phillies. I watch both religiously,
but they drive me up a bleeping wall. I mean, oh my God.
You are not alone, my friend. You're not alone. So thank God we have the Flyers.
Yeah, good job by our friends at PHL Sports Nation.
All right. So, make sure you check them out on Twitter also at PHL Sports Nation, along with PHLSportsNation.com. And now we'll pause real quick from a word from our other great sponsors. All right, Adam, we've talked so much about the wide receiver position. Who's going to line up where? Who's going to be healthy?
People want to know, man. People want to know.
It's definitely the spot on offense that people want to know about. So let's get into a few things that we're hearing and that we know. I feel like the Goodwin opt-out, Marquise Goodwin's opt-out, left some openings for, because we've talked about Hightower and Watkins that they have to first prove that they're going to make the team, whereas a guy like Goodwin, because he's a veteran and he would have been the backup Z to Deshaun, almost had that spot locked just on that. But he's gone. So now there's some opportunity. One thing I've been hearing is that Reagor, who we talked about with the conditioning, is that, and I reported this a long time ago, it's already taken place. Reagor is seeing time at the X position. So he is also learning the Z, as Doug Peterson said, but there have been in practice times where he's lining up at the X position already. So,
you remember what Reagor said in his Zoom deal with the media. He actually said that he had been learning. This is the first time we actually heard this publicly, that he'd been learning X. So he
moved on, and this is what I'm told. His learning has been great. He's a quick learner. It helped because he played He played X and Z. I think he actually played slot, which is depending on what system, it's either Y or F. I believe he played slot too there. But the bottom line is he's going to be a multi-position player. Now, if Jeffrey's not ready week 1, which is probably realistic, though, in my reporting on this, he has a real shot to come back in September at some point. I couldn't tell you week 2, 3, 4, or 4, or if he's not ready, whether it's 5 or 6. Now, because he's not practiced, he's still in PUP. They don't know. But I could just tell you, based on his conditioning and working and how hard he's worked, he's doing damn well. Barring a setback, he's going to help this team probably early. Now, let's move this along. If he's back within the first 3 or 4 weeks, the X's are probably going to be Jeffrey and Reagor. That's just the way I see it. Now, you have some news, which kind of blows me away. Go ahead.
It sounds like the Eagles coaches are thinking along the lines that we've been talking at him, because if Jeffrey comes back and if Reagor's doing well at the X, they're going to already have to figure out playing time for those guys. And what happens to J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who really, as we've talked about, is built like an X. He's strong. He's physical. Should be able to beat press coverage. Was known in college for making contested catches. Where would he go? Because he's not a natural speed Z. I've been told he's been lining up in the slot quite a bit early on here.
Oh, boy.
And if that sounds strange,
yes,
I will say
I was not surprised. I was not thinking this would happen. This is a surprise to me. Go ahead.
It's not completely unique if you think about Jordan Matthews was a similar type of slot receiver, a taller, more physical
6'3",
receiver.
Yeah.
Who was not, not a vertical slot by any stretch of the means, and neither would Arcega-Whiteside be, but somebody who's big and strong and can use his body to shield those interior defenders. And so, again, could it change? Maybe, but right now that's what I've told. He's been lining up there a decent amount, so we'll see.
Well, here's the thing. Now, let's say if Jeffrey's not ready, okay, it should be week 1, Djax, Z, Reagor, X, Arcega-Whiteside back in, Reagor up at X. Reagor could also, when Deshaun needs a breather, which will be plenty. He will. I don't know that he'll play 40 plays a game, but we'll see. I think JJ could go to Z. And you could stick Hightower in, assuming he makes a team. And then you've got also, if when they're in 11 personnel, G-Jax at Z, Reagor at X,
Right.
Ward, who's would be the starting slot as of today. Or on your note, I'm still kind of like in shock over this. I don't think he's enough, but listen, they know better than you and I. If this is, and our listeners, our listeners know football. These people are sharp. Go to our message board on Facebook. You'll know how smart. They're the smartest fans I've seen. They know their bleep real well. I just don't see him as an F. But this is whoever you got this information from, that's really fascinating. Because as you said, Arcega-Whiteside is tall and he can go get the ball. He's a better athlete than Jordan Matthews. I just don't. But Jordan Matthews though had this incredible ability when he's at the top of his game to get open. Just really reliable pass target. Now JJ's not shown that yet, but they might be onto something. Look, these are smart people who are coaching. Aaron Moorhead, I've heard, really good coach. Like they apparently they were not going to mess this one up. Like they did a lot of. It wasn't just him. They look at other guys. They were going to get this one right. So I know they feel really confident with Moorhead. Right. So right now, Geoff, they've got a plan, a vision for what it's going to look like, but they're not going to know until they know on Jeffrey. They need to get an idea when he'll be ready. Again, he's not even practicing yet. They need to see what Arcega-Whiteside looks like in pads, getting contact, playing inside. Can he get off press? That is a short area, unless you're a vertical slot, as you mentioned. That F position for the Eagles is all about inside technique, getting off press, and getting open. He hasn't been asked to do that because he didn't play it last year.
Right. As far as Hightower and Watkins, Adam, sounds like Watkins is lining up mostly at Z. It sounds like he's kind of taken on that role that Goodwin would have had, that backup Z to Rager as he tries to make the team. And Hightower has been more of a move receiver. We talk about that move Z. You can line up at Z, move to the slot. They're probably going to experiment him, I would think. This is just me guessing here with X a little bit, just because he has great speed. You know, I mean, he can get open and separate down the field.
He actually, I just want to say with Hightower, I'm a little surprised. I would think Watkins will be a more moved Z, but I'm just going based on your reporting on this that Hightower is that guy. I would assume that they must feel that Boyce's offense, whatever his role was there, they thought it projected well to do that. That's interesting that they're doing that. And then with Arcega-Whiteside, let me just make one small correction. He did, I'm told, get practice time at F or their slot position, but I don't remember him playing slot. And if he did, he just didn't make an impact at all. Now,
do you mean last year he got something?
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
he did a little bit.
Remember, Doug,
but he's
made
not
a big
a slot though.
Right.
I get that, but he's just not. Look, I say that, and they know more than I. If they're right, I give him a thumbs up, and I'll admit I'm wrong, but we'll see.
Well, let me just speculate here, because sometimes with him catching the ball was the issue last year in the few times he was out there. And
he was hurt. He's also hurt.
Right. But if you're having any issues catching the ball or seeing it in, when you line up in the slot, as you know, and play the type of slot he does, the ball gets out of the hand to you a lot quicker.
Got to turn quick? Yeah, you got to turn, man.
Yeah. So maybe that's just getting the ball in his hands quicker as a way to get his confidence going. It worked 3 years ago for Nelson Aguilar, but we'll see what happens.
Well, and Nelly could run though, man, and he could run when he was right. I don't see people have a short memory. They see the Nelson who was hurt last season and struggled obviously, and they saw him his rookie season. 17, he was really good. Greg Ward, let's get to him.
Yeah.
Here's the thing with Ward. He's got two things going against him. He's small. He's not fast, but he has two things that are really, really important. He gets open, and he's tough as bleep. He really is tough as he is tough
as nails.
And he's tough, and he was so dependable for them. Where were they? This is a little bit of a stretch, but I'm not going to say they would not have made the playoffs without him. But who the hell was who? No, but who was Carson thrown to in the stretch when they turned the season around late?
No, he had some pretty important catches in games last year down the stretch. Yeah, I think it was important.
I mean, come on, Robert Davis and who are these other guys?
And Doug clearly likes him.
Come on, yeah.
Doug clearly likes Greg Ward. He went kind of overboard, I thought, a little bit on how much he liked him during his Zoom session.
Right.
Yes, they've increased their speed, and they have a lot of names here, and they're mixing and matching guys, but I still think Ward's a pretty good – I mean, he's the only natural slot wide receiver that they have. So when they're in 11 personnel day one, right now at least, I mean, Greg Ward's got to be that inside guy until other guys show that they can do it as well. So we'll monitor that as the phases go from 2 to 3.
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah,
want to get into linebacker a little bit. I just gather when I read message boards and see what people are saying that we need to continuously reemphasize Davion Taylor has a long way to go. And I know people are in love with what they've seen with his closing speed and his pursuit. And I think it's kind of clouding them into understanding that he has not played this position for a long time, and specifically as a stack linebacker, which you have to be able to do. And so that's an important – I'm just saying this, Adam, because I keep seeing like a lot of hope for him and a real I guess, a zest to see him on the field. And I'm just trying to tell people to slow their roll. Yeah, well, I know we keep saying it, but I'm telling you that people are – especially when Jatavis Brown retired, people took that as a chance for Davion to really
they
go and get in there.
No, he's not going to be – barring a major surprise, I'm not even saying a minor surprise, a major surprise, he will not be on the field for defense. If he dresses, it'll be for offense, special teams. Sean Bradley is the guy who definitely will dress. We'll get to him in a second.
Yeah.
Well, no, he needed to make the team, but if he makes it, he'll dress for specials. But Taylor did not play high school football, okay, because of his background. He played 2 years at a junior college and 2 at Colorado. So he needs development, folks. But with his athleticism, he is a nickel linebacker for 8 to 10 years in this league. If he makes it, if he becomes a player that the Eagles think he is, they're going to get it right in that. This is really the earliest you would take a nickel linebacker. A little bit early. Other teams that I was expecting to go in the 5th round. I don't know what the Eagles' grade was, but the Eagles are like many teams. It's not really by grade. It's what they project. It's not a round system. It's okay. This player we project and he fits in as a player, whether it's a color, whatever they call it. He just projects to be a down the line player. So this is not surprising. This is what I was expecting.
Right. And so from what I've heard from really good sources that, if you look at the Eagles' 2 rookie linebackers right now, Davion Taylor and Sean Bradley is the one who has been impressing the coaches because naturally he is an intellect guy. He's smart. He grasps the playbook. He knows where to be. He's not.
By the way, you know what his agent is? You know why he's smart?
Is it Barry Gardner?
You got it. It went to Northwestern for me. Isn't that funny? No, I'm just kidding.
Eagles linebacker to another.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, but you're right. Look, he's the source I used from Temple who told me that he will make it in this league for 2 reasons. Special teams player. It means a lot to him. And he's incredible for your locker room. He's a glue guy. The term is glue guy. He's a guy that you want. He's a Ike Reese. Okay, that's who he is. Smart, an intellectual. He, from a football standpoint, it means a lot to him. Energy and passion. That's how Ike made it because he was a backup outside linebacker, I think. But he made it this league because he was great at specials. The game meant a lot to him. And you know how special the guy is. So
yeah, definitely.
And that's why Bradley was a 6th rounder. This is exactly what you're hoping. Let's hope he makes it for the Eagles' sake and Bradley's sake because he's got a lot to offer.
Yeah, well, he's off to a good start. Like I said, I've been told that he's really pleased the coaches. And by the way, on Davion Taylor, also heard that he's dealing with a little bit of a slight hammy deal. It hasn't sidelined him, but obviously when you're a rookie and you're trying to get there, show yourself, and you're also pushing through a hammy strain, it's not so easy. So I don't want to say, I shouldn't call it a strain. If you're pushing through even some tightness, I've been told it's minor, but he's got that. So we will move on. So that's the linebacker group and the rookies. Let's talk a little bit about the offensive line and defensive line before we get out of here. I guess what I wonder now, Adam, is now that Vinny Curry's aboard and he's going to make the team and is your 3rd D end, is how many spots do they plan on keeping for all these other guys? And does the expanded practice squad really factor in here? Yes,
and I think it was Brett Veach who says it. I'm not positive. So some GM either
we talked to, or I heard on Sirius XM NFL Radio. I can't remember. But anyway, one of them, and I forgot about this rule. This year, you could actually have some sort of veterans on your practice squad. So that could play in, Geoff. We'll have to see. But right now, here are the locks. Barnett, Graham, Curry, Sweat. Those are your 4. Competing, I think, for the guys competing for the last, they'll keep 6, I think. That would be my guess. because they've done that before. Avery, Miller, Tuhill, and Osman. Avery should make it because he's a quick twitch guy.
Right.
I know they love Osman. I know we put it out June of 19. We put on our show the guy's making the team. Now, so we didn't know he tears ACL, but that because everyone in the building is in love with this kid. We were out in front of this thing. We said, here's what we're hearing. This kid is sort of he was ruining their rookie practices because he goes so hard. No one could block him. You're really not supposed to. He blows by everybody, and they love his energy, and he's the kind of guy you want to have around, kind of like Sean Bradley. So right now, man, Sharif Miller, I know he's bulked up, but Tuhill's a interesting guy who kind of stood out a little bit at East West Shrine. It's going to be hard for Tuhill to make it just because he's a 7th-round pick.
Right.
So I would think 6, Geoff. Does that make 6 make sense to you?
Well, you had the 3 that we mentioned: Barnett, Curry, and
Sweat.
Graham.
It's 4.
Sweat is 4. Avery 5. Are you counting Miller? I mean, I think Sharif Miller is making this team.
Well, okay. It's okay.
Miller and Osman?
7?
See, I'm thinking that they're going to give a lot of latitude to Sharif Miller because he's a 4th-round pick.
Okay.
Osman's a guy that you can still put on the practice squad, right? I mean, especially if they're expanded.
You say that. No, but you have but you have to waive him first.
Yeah, but I mean, everybody's in fairness, everybody's kind of got a high motor guy in camp.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
I mean, look, it's too early. I'd just be very surprised if Sharif Miller was cut.
Okay, I didn't say would. I'm just saying 4's a lock. The 4 that we've talked about a lock. Avery should make it because he didn't get a fair shot last season.
Correct.
He should be 5. The question is, do they keep 6? I say yes. Miller or Osman. Maybe they cut Osman. He passes through. He's going to the practice squad. He'll be the first guy to go to the practice squad. So
sure,
that's it. Curry doesn't need to play inside this year because Malik Jackson showed up in really good shape. I'm told he's actually under 290. He's healthy. Looks good. This D-tackle rotation is nasty, man. My God, they just if they all stay healthy, this is when you want an inside pass rush to impact the quarterback and make him move off his spot. My God, this is the epitome of that with Hargrave, Cox, Ridgeway, Jackson, and that's it. And Rush, if Rush makes it, he probably won't play much, but they're good there.
Definitely. On the other side, the offensive line, I know we talked a little bit about Jack Driscoll and getting that chance to play some right tackle with Mailata out and Lane Johnson out. He's another guy. If in my early information gathering on rookies that have really impressed their coaches, I mentioned Sean Bradley on defense, but Driscoll's getting high regards. And the biggest thing for him, I'm told, Adam, is that Jeff Stoutland is really liking him so far. And when Jeff Stoutland is one of your big advocates, that's a good thing for you.
That might be the number one most important
offensive lineman. They believe, over the years with coaches, with teams, there's usually 1 or 2 coaches that the front office trusts. If he's not number 1, he's no worse than number 2. Sort of that pecking order they trust. The only thing, though, Geoff, let's not go too crazy with this. The veterans, they're not in pads yet, and the veterans are not doing anything with them yet. So once we're going to learn a lot about him. Jordan Mailata needs to, before we get out of here, he really needs to get off the COVID list. I get it. It's not his fault. I understand. But just because once they're in pads, if you can get out there once they're in pads for that 3-week period, that will give him a real shot to dress each week. He's going to make the team, obviously. This kid's a super freak. He just has had back issues, which are cleared up. He's fine. But if he can get off the COVID list by Monday and get out there with Driscoll and Mailata, and Matt Pryor and Nate Herbig. Those are the guys. Yeah, those are the guys. We don't know anything about Wanago yet. I'd be very surprised if he'd make the team. He's real raw, but super athletic. But we'll get into.
He's in year 2.
Suapeta's there, right. So Casey Tucker's there. They claimed off waiver from the Lions. But the fact of the matter is, Geoff, when you look at it, Mailata is someone they don't have. They've never had anyone this athletic other than Lane Johnson. If he's not the most athletic right tackle, he's top 3. He's just obviously Lane's a tremendous football player. Mailata, over time, if he could just stay on the field, because you heard what Stoutland said in his Zoom session with the media. He could just tell how much he knows right now. His learning is going way up. They just need to get him on the field.
All right, before we get out of here, one more note.
All right.
Cowboys get better, Adam. They just signed Everson Griffin.
Yeah. So Wednesday night, Geoff, they agreed to a deal with Everson Griffin. So they have a lot of DNs in camp, but there's a reason why they brought him in. So Griffin will be a tremendous third end. As a matter of fact, Tyron Crawford, their veteran DN, who's near the end of a great career. He's sort of a heart and soul glue guy. Who can move and still. Right now, Griffin should be their nickel pass rusher. Him and Lawrence should play on the outside. Remember, Lawrence has had shoulder surgeries. They've got Olden Smith, who Geoff. I mean, let's face it, Olden Smith. He hadn't played. Remember, he's not played since 2015.
Right.
Okay. The Raiders. Remember,
it's a long
the Raiders.
time.
They cut him. Right. So you don't know about him.
No.
And you don't know about Alden Smith. I mean, you don't know about Randy Gregory. So they had to sign him. They have a lot. Brady and I is a guy I love from Utah, who's a 5th-round pick, folks.
People like that.
For guys who like the scouting stuff. Yeah, he's a good player. So, yeah, that helps, man. Tell you what, Ngakoue, don't be shocked that the Raiders make a play for him. The Raiders have had interest in him the entire offseason. I know it's been sort of up and down, but I know they have a lot of interest in that player. We'll see. I'm not saying anything's going to happen, but they've definitely had interest in him.
Well, he's a great player, but I kind of like their young defensive end tandem there of Max Crosby and Clelin Ferrell.
Oh, he's a stud, right. I know, 4th pick overall last year, but I'm telling you. Yeah, his kid's a stud. So, anyway.
All right, that's going to do it. Remember, wait for our ITB TV to drop. Super Bowl champion general manager
later today.
Brett Veach joined us. It'll drop later today. It'll be I thought it was a fantastic interview, so make sure you check that out. Head to InsideTheBirds.com because we've been updating it with more content, more stories from myself, Andrew DeCecco. Adam will be writing a little bit more coming up soon, so make sure you're checking out InsideTheBirds.com. And that's going to do it for this edition of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in the Eagles intel. Thanks to our producer, Hunter Brody. Check out his work on YouTube. It's called Sports Talk with Broads. And check out his podcast called Processed. He does that with former Villanova basketball star Darrell Reynolds. And also check out his work on Twitter at Broads81. And, of course, as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the Birds.